Hi everyone! In this final video we're going to go over the afterword in the book, and here we just kind of learn about some things that happened since this book was written, some things because of the impact of Ron's case. So, as of the time of the writing, according to the Innocence Project, there were 240 people in the United States have their convictions overturned by DNA evidence. Ron's was the 23rd. And remember, we talked about the Deborah Sykes case in this, where Jennifer's mom had left clippings about it, and Deborah Sykes had been raped and then she was murdered. Well, they had actually convicted a man of that rape and murder. DNA proved his innocence in '94, but he was not exonerated until another 10 years later because of legal stuff. So please understand that Ron's case, I think, is unique in the fact that immediately everybody was understanding that, oh, this is a huge mistake we've made. We've got to immediately rectify it, and that doesn't always happen. Because of Ron's case, it helped establish measures for other exonerees in the state. In 2001, they changed the amount a person would receive from $10,000 to $20,000. And then in August of 2008, they changed it again. So those who received a pardon of innocence on or after January 1st, 2004 would receive $50,000 for each year of wrongful imprisonment, with a cap at $750,000. So they're not going to pay you more than $750,000. So the question is that enough? What do you think? Is that enough? Because you could have people who spent 20, 30 years wrongfully imprisoned. $750 enough for that. We find out that Mike retired as chief, and under his leadership, the Burlington Police Department became the first in the state of North Carolina to mandate sequential lineups, where witnesses were given photos of suspects, but they didn't see them all at once. They saw them one at a time, and double-blind procedures. And so here's a great example, a police officer who clearly they learned from their case that, wait a minute, the procedures I was doing are wrong, and now they're in a position as chief that they fixed it. Hopefully, that they are starting to fix it and implement better ways to do their work. Ron's lawyer, Tom, became a judge, which I think he's the perfect person to be a judge and to make judgments on cases. Phil Mosley is still in general practice. Rich Rosen, the professor, was so deluged with letters from people asking for help with their cases that he started an Innocence Project with his students. And then finally, they talk about Troy Anthony Davis and his case. And he is a black man who was convicted of shooting a white police officer. So that dynamic has a lot going on for it. There really wasn't a lot of information, and it looks like the witnesses recanted their statements and said, no, we were pressured by the police. So there's a lot of problems with that kind of a case, especially when it's a police officer. If it's a police officer who's been killed, a lot of times the police are really wanting someone to pay for that. And so in this case, I really question whether they have the right person or not. And so at the time of the publishing of this book, he was going through the appeals process. In 2011 was his execution date, and unfortunately they did execute him. The videos for this afterword are 3 videos that Amnesty International put together about his case that came out prior to his execution, and then there is a short news clip about his execution as well. So that's it. We finished the book. I do want to show you something though. While you guys were working on week 6, another man was released from prison who had been wrongly convicted of a crime. Now, he has not been exonerated yet or anything like that, but the judge released him on his own recognizance. And so this case was covered on one of my true crime podcasts called Undisclosed, and about a year or so ago they covered it, and it was the death of a black couple in a Baptist church in Georgia back in the 80s. And this case actually was featured on Unsolved Mysteries. You can actually watch the episode on Amazon Prime. And at the time, glasses from the killer were left at the crime scene. And so they had a lot of tips come in, a lot of suspects, but nothing happened. And then at the end of the 90s, they went back to the case again, and they arrested and convicted Dennis Perry. And Dennis Perry, at the time of his sentencing, the prosecution gave him a deal. Don't appeal your case, and we will take the death penalty off the table. which to me sounds kind of hinky. It's like, why wouldn't you want someone to appeal their case? Um, because it sort of sounds like maybe there's something wrong, and they knew there was something wrong with the case. And so for all these years, for 20 years, he has been in prison for a crime that he didn't commit. Well, because of the podcast and the help of the lawyers from that podcast, they finally did DNA testing on the glasses. And guess what? It wasn't Dennis Perry. It was actually, it could possibly be a suspect that they actually have on their list, who he was actually a member of the KKK. And so they went in front of a judge during week 6, and they said, look, we've got DNA evidence here that's not pointing to our client, it's pointing to this other guy. And the prosecution in this case are just disgusting because they don't care. They don't care if the DNA points to someone else. They said he made a deal that he couldn't appeal his case. He's appealing his case. This isn't okay. Which, he's wrongfully convicted here, people. So the judge is like, nope, we're going to throw this conviction out. So there wasn't bail. Instead, the judge just released him on his own recognizance. So during week 6, when you all were working on information, Dennis Perry was released from prison. So this is what happens. This is good stuff. A man who spent 20 years wrongfully convicted in prison, and that's him being released. And so Colin Miller there, he tweeted that he was one of the lawyers in the podcast, and one of the other lawyers in the podcast tweeted about it as well, and her name is Susan Simpson. And I love Susan. If you're ever convicted of anything, she is the person to get, because she will follow everything wherever it goes. It's been amazing to see where her cases have gone and led to. But she has something very interesting to tweet about. This is what one of the police officers in this case said to her when she started investigating this case. And so, as she's looking at this picture that I just showed you, she says, remembering fondly that time, the lead police investigator in Dennis's case told me to take your effing investigation and shove it up your effing A. That's what a police officer told her. So yeah, there's a lot of misconduct in that case. But I wanted to show you that even in the midst of us going through Ron's case, someone else just got released. So this stuff is happening all the time. So please be aware of it. Please educate yourself. And it's something that we definitely need to work on as a society. All right, so that is it. So for the rest of this week, you have a short, and I do mean short, quiz over this last section. It's under the quizzes tab on Cobra. And then you have the final exam. I will have a final exam review guide. It is not an assignment you turn in. It's simply a list of the points that you need to know for the exam. And then the exam, you have 2 hours to complete. And remember, you'll see every question one at a time, but then you can't go back to a previous question once you've left it, okay? And then if at the end of the final exam you are given a grade, don't worry about it. Don't pay attention to it. I have to go in and grade your short answer questions. So your grade for the final exam will be under the grades tab on Cobra. Okay? So I hope you've enjoyed the things that we've talked about and learned. I hope you've learned a lot from this course. Again, annotating what you read is so important. So all these videos I made over each chapter, I use my annotations. That's what they're there for, so you don't have to go back and reread everything. And that's very important. And find your own system. Find something, your own way of taking notes that you're going to understand, and it'll be an easy process for you. I wish you guys luck in the fall semester if you're continuing with your education here at Parkland. If you have any questions about the class or what's coming up in the fall, please let me know. Things are going to be a little weird. I think they're trying to do some classes online and some classes in person and a mixture. They call it a hybrid. So I would highly recommend that prior to the first day of class, get a hold of your professors. If you haven't heard from them, definitely check your Parkland email for that to determine how they're going to start the class. Okay? So again, if you have any questions about what you need to do for this week, please let me know. It feels weird to end this without ever really getting to see any of you. But please stay safe, stay healthy during all of this, stay sane if you can. And I wish you the best of luck in your future career and beyond. Take care.